Welcome. I wanted to talk to you about starting a new class at my school. It's called Scientific Entrepreneurship and Design. And I'm going to be using, it's going to be a project-based learning class and be integrating more technology into the classroom. So we're reinventing this science course. And I wanted you to see how I can use the SAMR model and the TPACK framework to help shape the class. And so since we're making a significant change in the culture and organization of the class, and I wanted to integrate technology into it more, then I wanted to look at these two different models or frameworks. Okay, so the first one is the SAMR model. It lays out 4 tiers of online learning: substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. And so I need to be able to pick the right strategy for the lesson at hand. These are ways to use technology and integrate it into your classroom. The redefinition is not the end goal. You do want to be able to use the right type of modification or right type of technology for the lesson at hand. So if you want to learn more about the SAMR model, then you can click on or open this with your camera, and it'll bring you to a website to see more about the SAMR model. So good technology integration does not mean we have to put everything to the redefinition level, but we must pick the right strategy for the lesson at hand. So for substitution, that would be changing out paper copy worksheets and substituting them for a digital copy. So instead of printing this out on paper and giving it to the students, I could post this up online in the student learning management system. They could access it, work this in their lab or design notebook, and then take a photo of that and submit a digital copy of that as their work. Or I could pick up their notebooks and look at it that way. All right, next is augmentation. Augmentation would be where the assignment has been changed in such a way that the student's productivity is increased. It's a way of enhancing the student's learning experience. And so in this case, I would have demonstrated the steps necessary to create the isometric drawings. But suppose the student was too shy to ask for clarification on one of the steps. So along with the digital worksheet, I can add a link to a video tutorial about creating isometric drawings. If you can see, this is a live link, and so the students would be able to access that video. Modification would be, I need to ask myself, how is the original task being modified? Does this modification fundamentally depend on the new technology I want to use in the classroom? And does this modification contribute to my classroom design and the design of my class? So in this case, the class would have access to a computer-aided drawing or drafting program, and the students would no longer draw the isometric drawings with pencil and paper, but they would create the drawings on the CAD software, and then they could print out their designs. And so this could only be done with the CAD software and a printer, so it meets this definition of modification. And then next, if I wanted to look at redefinition, so that would be redefining the original task into a new student-oriented learning experience. And it's only possible with the use of technology. So in this case, I would have the students create the isometric drawings with the CAD program, but they would work with 4 other students with the goal of creating a 5-piece puzzle that when they fit these 5 pieces together, it creates a cube, and so this is called the puzzle cube. So they can, each design their own piece. They have to work together, share their ideas, share their pieces with one another, and make sure they fit together. So they're collaborating, and so that's a whole new experience for the students, and it's only possible with the technology. They could even print these out, and if they printed this pieces out, then they would fit them together and end up with a puzzle that they could have in hand. So how does this, how could I use the TPACK framework in designing my class? Well, TPACK represents technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge. So it's a place where those three types of knowledge connect. So the point of TPACK is to understand how to use technology to teach concepts in a way that enhances the student learning experience. So there is a relationship between technological knowledge, pedagogy knowledge, and content knowledge. And so I want to look at, I'm trying to design a lesson and use my knowledge of where those three types of knowledge intersect and where do they merge, and so that they can complement each other, and then by doing so it improves the student learning and the student's engagement with the class and the classwork. So effective teaching with technology requires a great deal from the teacher. This level of teaching, putting all three of these types of knowledge together into a single lesson, it takes practice and it takes preparation. So, so I need to look at some questions to see if I'm ready for this. All right, so if you want to learn more about the TPACK framework, then you can scan this code. It'll take you to a website to learn more about it. So the questions I need to ask myself, first about content. Do I know the content well enough to teach it with or without the use of technology? Does the use of technology help or hinder the understanding of the content? Next is pedagogy, and that's how do I teach? How do my students learn best? So what are the best practices for me teaching a lesson in the classroom? What instructional strategies work for this particular content? Do I have the knowledge of what makes the content difficult or easy to learn? And how do I use technology to help redress some of these problems that the students may face? So I'm really looking at the idea of what's the best practices for teaching, and how do I put those best practices into place, and how do I use those best practices with the technology that I have? So can I use that and adapt my teaching to use the technology so the students learn the content with a deeper understanding and a greater appreciation? And then next is technology. Do I know how to use the technology? Do I know what digital tools are available to me and my students? Can I use the technology to help my students learn the content? So I need to be able to answer those questions when I'm thinking about using this TPACK framework. They must, when thinking about what the TPACK represents, we must keep technology in the proper context. And what I read was good teaching requires an understanding of how technology relates to the pedagogy and the content. So they're not in isolation. I'm wanting to merge those, see where those three knowledges come together to produce the best lesson for my students. So using the puzzle cube as the example, again, my goal is for my students to be able to create a 5-piece, 3-dimensional puzzle cube, which can be taken apart and then reassembled and digitally, but also physically come up with a physical model of this puzzle. So when I'm looking at the content, my content-based learning activities are based on the isometric drawings, which are 2-dimensional drawings which represent a 3-dimensional object. So that's the content I'm trying to get across. Pedagogical knowledge helps me to decide what are the best activities for my students in which I can deliver this content. So the students, I'm teaching the students how to create these isometric drawings and how to create this puzzle. And then, can I use the technology? in doing that. And so, I'm going to have the computer available, the computer-aided drafting program available, a 3D printer. And so with that technology available, then I can have that delivery mechanism to reach my goal and give the students a memorable experience. So, with my particular, lesson in mind, that's the end goal. They end up with a physical working model of their own 5-piece, 3-dimensional puzzle cube, each student designing an individual piece, collaborating together so that those pieces fit together to create a puzzle cube that they can then print out with the 3D printer and have an actual physical model of their work. So here's some footnotes that I used for my presentation. And so just wanted you to, just understand, that you can try it, and you'll be surprised with what you can come up with for your students. Thank you.